Are you in position?
Just ping it. Can you ping it?
You want me to ping it?
Just send me a ping.
Ping?
Guys, this season is insane, and I love it so, so much.
Look, I'm glad you dig it. We're having some fun. We are having too much fun, I would say.
I'm glad you're digging it.
It's such a blast. Can you both talk to me a little bit about the character creation process for both of your characters and finding kind of the dichotomy between your Dave's Video World character and your In the VHS character?
Ooh. Yeah, I'll jump in and say what I've kind of been saying a bunch, which is, yeah, pretty much for me, it started with Vic Ethanol, because I just love Fast and Furious, and once I knew the concept, I was like, well, that's what I'm doing, and I just kind of ran with that, and that's all I really needed to know. I was like, okay, we're doing action movie heroes, I'm going. And so Wendell, I kind of went with simply because I was like, okay, I've done a lot of like big, boisterous characters, and Vic is kind of going to be that way anyway. So what's like a spin on this that's going to be a little different, that might mix it up, that might give a new kind of take on it. So yeah, it's like it truly is like how that went for me. Started with Vic and then round out.
For me, it was kind of like the direct little opposite, where I came up with Dang first, where I had the kernel of idea of like, I really want to play a guy who believes that he's in contact with an alien. So that was first. And then we got the information of where it was taking place, which is, Ify and I both grew up in Southern California, and I spent a lot of time in San Bernardino, and was like, who's there? And kind of like built Dang around like, I have an interest in punk music, but was like never a full crusty guy. And was like, it could be fun to be like a full crust. And then sort of decided on having him be from outside of California, living with his uncle, based on a conversation with Beards. And so we had this like, scuzzy wuzzy punk guy, and the math was just like, who's most fun to play? And it's the clean cut 007 assassin.
I love that so much. And then Ify, you made such a cool choice early on where you had Vic Ethanol talk to Wendell. Was that something you'd been thinking about? Did it come out in the moment? What was the thought process behind that?
I think it was just sitting in the kind of like improv world of everything, and just seeing the patterns that we were doing. We were basically, everyone was heightening their game and going to the next like level of everything. So then I was like, okay, then my take here, what's going to break the pattern here and like allow us to heighten? And that was in fact going wild and letting Vic communicate. And then it gave everyone an opportunity to kind of play along.
It was so fun. And then Dang had some of the most emotionally poignant scenes this season, which I didn't expect, and I loved it so much. Can you talk about kind of that moment with Dang and the radio host, and really kind of getting into his motivation and what he wants out of life?
I think it was just, something that was sort of in the back of my head of like, you need to know like what this person wants and what this person doesn't have. And so I think in sort of just those interior decisions that I had made on my own, and sort of conversations with Brennan of like, how do you tell a story over 20 hours in a dome and stuff like that, where he had sort of guided me in having some decisions made about the character and stuff like that. And it was just an opportunity for one of those decisions that I had made in my own little head as developing this person to come out and to come forward. And I didn't want him to just be the sort of like, I didn't want Dang to be the 1980s punk or the 1980s ne'er-do-well sort of Breakfast Club, flannel cutoff guy. I wanted him to be like a true fuck up, and to have like reasons why he acted this way, as opposed to just being a trope. And so I feel like those are the moments where you can distinguish a character from being a trope to being a real person, is trying to ground his wants and his desires. And, you know, we've all had moments like that as humans where we just can't get it together, or where we feel a little distant from our body or whatever. And so it's just trying to bring like a real human moment forward, and just be really honest, and just really playing in honesty, and being like, it's okay, you don't have to be funny, which is not my instinct. My instinct as a comedian is to be funny, but to be a good storyteller, you can't always be funny.
Definitely. It was such a great moment. It was such a great moment. And then Jacob, what was it like being in the Dome for the first time? And can you talk about working a little bit with Beardsley to create that dynamic between your two characters going into the game?
I mean, it was an extremely exciting and intimidating honor to be welcomed into the Dome. It is like, you know, it has a reputation, it has a weight to it, it has like some of the funniest MFers to exist inside of it. And so you're like, don't fuck it up, dude. Like, honor the institution and bring your voice into the institution. So I was just very honored and jazzed to get an opportunity, and was like, you know, treat it like I don't get to do it again, and just put it all in, and just go all in, and be full Jacob, be full Wysocki, and have a good time. And everybody that I was working with are pros, and Brennan's a pro, and everybody at the table's a pro, and everybody who makes the show is a pro. And there were moments where I was like, I don't know if I want that to be on TV, and people are so good and awesome about taking care of you that I quickly was just like, oh, this is an amazing family that wants to make the best product and do it in the most comfortable way. And as far as Beardsley goes, I think truly it was just like, we were in an improv show in the green room, kind of lightly talking about this, and I was like, well, what if they were related? And then Beards was like, yeah, you could like live in my extra room. And I was like, what about a shack in the back? And we both laughed, and then probably never talked about it ever again. And I think just, we made that decision, we vocalized that decision, and it was truth. And then the rest is just us riffing, being buds.
I love it. And I hope we see you in the Dome again. I really hope this is not the only time, because you were.
Hey, we were praying for it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Ify, you got to jump behind the DM screen a couple times. What was going through your head when you had a minute to just break the game and do whatever you wanted?
I think, you know, the balancing for letting a player just jump in the GM chair is putting a timer behind it, because the moment you put a timer to someone's thinking, all thoughts go out the window. You can no longer think you can no longer think well. Like if someone is like, hey, like I think a lot about that Billy Eichner meme where it's like, name a woman, and like it's the insistency and speed that she's like, I think it's the same thing where it's like, you know, to GM something is such a vast realm of thinking that having 60 seconds on you forces you to think like in the moment. It almost prevents you from thinking of ways to break the game, because you see the timer, you hear it counting down, and you're just trying to make something happen. And so you're like, what's the best story beat to add right now?
I loved it. It was so much fun. And then can you talk to me a little bit about that fun dynamic that you had with Alex, with kind of Wendell and Liv, and that like crush aspect, but also a deeper connection build beyond just a crush, but like friendship that leads to romance this season?
Oh yeah, I think that, you know, what was fun about that was the moment Alex, when they were talking about their character and Liv Skylar, I was like, oh, this, like, no matter what, this guy has a crush on this person based on the description you gave. This is like the pure crush character. Like no matter, like you locked that in the moment you gave that character description. But I think also, you know, we always see the like, because they did a cool thing together, then they fall in love, and I wanted to do something that felt genuine. It felt like a situation where two people would start, considering it, and it doesn't end in like, the big kiss. It ends in like oh, maybe we should hang out, and seeing what happens from there, and their stories ended up being intertwined in an interesting way that allowed them to kind of push each other to step outside of their comfort zone in the real world, not just in the game.
Definitely. And the visual of Vic Ethanol and Kingskin slowly falling in love was the funniest things.
Oh yeah, it's just you're given two visuals. Pretty hot. Right. You're giving something for everyone. Some sweet teen love, or a big daddy bear with a ripped gearhead.
So great. What for each of you is kind of the most surprising part of your character arcs from when you first conceived these characters to where they ended up by the end of the season?
I mean, for me, I was like really surprised that something so small at the beginning of like this sort of failed pirate radio show of Tangs, which was like one of those things that we like talked about in a session 0 very lightly. You know what I mean? Of like, maybe like these are his interests, and like this is a punk person interest or whatever. I was so surprised that turned into like the radio tower with like, with this incredible character who is like in the world, but also out of the world, which I think was really compelling and a different flavor as well. And that really just surprised me. And it was one of those things where you go like, oh yeah, Brennan really is like #1.
Yeah.
And then Ify, what kind of surprised you about your arc with your characters?
I guess, what really kind of surprised me was kind of seeing just the way that Wendell kind of goes on that journey, because I knew like the destination, I knew where I wanted to go, but seeing the way that it's shown itself in the opportunities through gameplay that we're given to try and like get closer with people and connect with others. And I think the thing that surprised me most is less about Wendell, but just that moment where, as Wendell, I'm trying to get this like hero moment where I get everyone to, try and use their juice to resurrect someone, and, live just running away and not wanting to do it, not wanting to give in to that. I think that was a big moment for, I think, me, like a surprising moment for me. I was like, oh, okay. And after we kind of wrapped on that cliffhanger, Alex was apologizing. We were like, no, that was true to the character. That made a good moment. Like, we don't have to play the thing that seems like the best thing to do. I think the thing we have to play is what seems the most like our characters.
I completely agree. And then you guys got to see Brennan really go off the rails this season, which was so much fun. What was that like at the table when you realized he was not only going to yes and you, but do it at such a level that you might start questioning the choices you made?
Oh, I was hyped, I feel like you almost watch it in the season, how it starts very kind of like chill and just ramps up.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like half the shots of this show are like me with my mouth open being like, whoa. And I think that just speaks for itself, as I was like constantly sort of like mystified and amazed and surprised at like how crazy this could be, and like grenades at the end of whips, and everybody had like some version of like jewels in their teeth, and like it was just constantly building and building and building, and it was just so exciting. And it's like one of those things where it's like, people make you rise to an occasion, and you're in this place that's becoming like chaotically like creative. And so you're like, well, let's match the energy. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what happens when we're truly in like the maelstrom of creativity. And it was fun as hell. It was like free falling.
I love it so much. Never Stop Blowing Up is such a great season. I somehow want more. I don't know how that would work. It's so good. It's crazy because Jacob, literally until you said grenades at the end of whips, I forgot about that. I forgot that happened. You're
like, how is that like a low note?
Yeah.
Like,
completely insane. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to me. I love this season. You both are fantastic in it.
Go find me a whip. And he runs towards the
with the dynamite.